My name is Larissa, and I'm a PR agent for a company based in the US, but I work out of their Guadalajara, Mexico office. Life was pretty normal until the company decided to participate in the Festival de Dia de Muertos in Puebla, Mexico. The idea was to set up stands and decorations to promote our company at the festival. To most people, this would seem like an exciting opportunity. For me, it was anything but. You see, I've always found the Day of the Dead celebrations a bit eerie. The idea of celebrating amidst symbols of death, parading through cemeteries, it just didn't sit right with me. But when your job's on the line, you do what you have to do. They signed me up as a hostess for the event. Before joining the company, I did some modeling, and they thought my presence, especially with the traditional Katrina makeup, would be good for PR. So there I was, reluctantly preparing for a night I was sure I'd rather forget. As the evening crept in, the festival grounds transformed. The night came alive with colors, music, and laughter. My friends were there too, and gradually their enthusiasm began to rub off on me. The decorations, the lights, the atmosphere, it was mesmerizing. For a moment, I let myself be carried away by the beauty of it all. A pang of sadness hit me when I remembered my grandmother. She passed away a few months back. We were incredibly close. She took care of me during college, and losing her left a void in my life. Standing there amidst the celebration of the dead, I whispered to myself, "Oh, Grandma, how I wish you were here with me enjoying this." I didn't realize then how much those words would come back to haunt me. The night wore on, and the initial discomfort I felt about the festival began to fade. The spectacle, the camaraderie with friends, all made the event quite enjoyable. Eventually, it was time to head back to my Airbnb. I was looking forward to a hot shower and some rest, unaware of the night that awaited me. I walked back, my mind replaying the evening's events. Reaching my Airbnb, I noticed something odd. The two large windows in the bathroom, which faced the backyard, were wide open. I was certain they were closed when I left. It was strange, but I shrugged it off, closed them, and began to remove my makeup, ready to end the night. But that's when things took a turn for the worse. As I wiped the Katrina makeup off my face, the room outside the bathroom plunged into darkness. The sudden blackout sent a shiver down my spine. I hesitated for a moment before venturing out to flip the switch back on. The apartment was small, so it didn't take long to check every corner. With no sign of anything amiss, I chalked it up to a faulty wiring issue, turned off the lights, and headed for the shower. After showering, I slipped into my pajamas, still feeling a bit unsettled. I decided to leave the bathroom light on, casting a faint glow into the bedroom. It seemed silly, but the thought of complete darkness was more than I could bear. With tomorrow's busy schedule in mind, I tried to coax myself to sleep. But just as I was drifting off, about 20 minutes later, a soft noise from the bathroom jolted me awake. The light flickered and went out. Heart pounding, I sat up in the pitch-black room. Before I could react, I felt a presence. Something tall and shadowy loomed over me. In a panic, I stumbled backward, only to be forcefully pushed down onto the bed. I could feel this entity, this shadow pressing down on me. It was heavy, suffocating. The smell was overwhelming, like a wet dog, but worse. Then, in a voice that chilled me to the bone, it whispered, "I am here, sweetie. Didn't you want me here? I missed you too, sweetie." It was an old woman's voice, eerily familiar, yet distorted. I tried to scream, but my voice was muffled against the bed. The thing kept pushing me down, its weight unyielding. Those 2 minutes felt like an eternity. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the pressure vanished. I was alone again, trembling in the darkness. In a frantic dash, I ran out of the apartment to a friend's place downstairs. I told him what happened, my words tumbling out in a panic. He called another colleague, and they cautiously checked my Airbnb. Nothing was there, but the distinct smell lingered. I spent the rest of the night at my friend's place, too scared to be alone, too shaken to sleep. The next day, I returned to Guadalajara, vowing never to engage in anything remotely related to spirits or the supernatural. Life slowly returned to normal, or so I thought. I pushed the incident to the back of my mind, dismissing it as a nightmarish hallucination. But a few weeks ago, the smell returned, and with it, the sound of an old woman's laughter echoing through my house. It's happened 3 times now, and each occurrence leaves me more terrified than the last. The first time I heard the laughter, I was alone in my house in Guadalajara. It was unmistakable, a crackling, eerie laugh that seemed to seep through the walls. My heart raced, and the familiar smell of wet dog filled the air, suffocating and intense. I searched everywhere but found nothing. No one. Just the empty rooms. After the 3rd occurrence, I couldn't deny it anymore. Something had followed me from Puebla, something uninvited and unsettling. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, the stress playing tricks on me. But the laughter, the smell, the overwhelming sense of being watched, it was all too real. I reached out to friends, colleagues, anyone who might have an explanation or a solution. Most were skeptical, a few concerned, but no one had any real answers. I installed extra locks on the doors, even set up a camera in my bedroom, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever was tormenting me. But the footage revealed nothing, just hours of stillness and the occasional flicker of a light. Then one night, as I lay in bed, wide awake and alert, I felt it again. The weight of something pressing down on me, the suffocating smell, and that voice so close it felt like it was inside my head. "I'm here, sweetie. You wanted me here." I couldn't move, couldn't scream. It felt like an eternity before it released me, leaving me gasping for air in the silent darkness. Now, I live in a constant state of fear and confusion. I've started researching, diving into old texts about spirits and hauntings, hoping to find some clue, some way to rid myself of this entity. I've even reached out to mediums and paranormal experts, desperate for any help they can offer. If anyone reading this has experienced anything similar, or knows how to banish such a presence, please, I implore you, reach out. I'm at my wit's end, scared of what each night might bring. I need to find a way to end this, to get my life back, because as much as I try to deny it, I know deep down it's not over. It's far from over. I'm Mario, and I'm from Monterrey, Mexico. Most people know about the brutal war against the narcos here, peaking around 2010-2012. Those turbulent times left behind more than just memories. They left abandoned buildings, ghostly remnants of a violent past. Among these, a particular house near my grandmother's place, in the outskirts of Monterrey, always intrigued me. It was an old narco safe house, now forsaken and shrouded in an eerie aura. One sunny afternoon, fueled by a mix of curiosity and a desire for adventure, my cousin Aaron and I decided to explore this house. We thought the daylight might shield us from the dangers of the neighborhood, and perhaps from any lurking ghosts. After all, a narco safe house wasn't just any old building. It was a place steeped in dark history, a silent witness to events we could only imagine. The house was surrounded by a makeshift fence, a barrier erected by neighbors to keep away the curious and the desperate. But youth and daring are hard to contain. We found our way in through a window in the backyard, our hearts racing with a mix of excitement and fear. Inside, the house was a picture of decay and desolation. The living room was a chaos of destruction, sofas gutted open, their insides spilling out like the entrails of some giant beast. An old TV lay broken, its screen a web of cracks. Beer cans, food wrappers, and cigarette butts littered the floors, along with a scattering of old magazines. As we ventured deeper, the house revealed nothing but more of the same. The air was heavy with the musty scent of abandonment. But our explorations took a turn when we stumbled upon a door leading to the basement. It was locked, but our curiosity was now a raging fire. We found an iron rod and started battering the lock, our blows echoing through the empty house. It felt like an eternity, But finally the lock gave way, not by breaking, but by tearing a part of the door away with it. With a mix of trepidation and excitement, we shone the feeble light of our mobile phones down the dark stairwell and descended into the unknown. The basement air was thick, metallic, and damp. It was a stark, uninviting place, but something caught my eye. A peculiar wooden figurine lying on the floor. It was an odd, unsettling piece, a human torso topped with a bull's head. Despite its eerie appearance, or perhaps because of it, I felt compelled to take it. It would be a tangible piece of this adventure, a memento of the day's bravery. Back at my grandmother's house, Aaron and I couldn't stop talking about our eerie expedition. We speculated about the house's dark past, the things that must have happened within those walls. The energy of our adventure was still high, but there was an undercurrent of unease, especially when I remembered the strange figurine I'd brought back. In the light of my grandmother's home, the figurine seemed even more bizarre. It had small red stains on it which I hadn't noticed before. I shrugged it off, attributing it to paint or some other benign substance. After all, it was just a wooden statue, a relic of our daring escapade. But then things started to change. My grandmother, who was a robust 74-year-old, began to fall ill. She complained of strange flus, and her mood shifted drastically. She grew irritable, often scolding me for wandering the house late at night talking in hushed tones on the phone. But I never did any of those things. I assumed her age was catching up to her mind playing tricks in the quiet hours of the night. As her condition worsened, she was hospitalized with heart problems. During one of my visits, she warned me in a frail voice, "Be careful at home, Mario. There's something evil there." I dismissed her words as the delusions of sickness. I couldn't bring myself to believe that the strong woman who raised me was fading, her mind clouded by illness. Back at her house, alone now, I felt an unshakable sense of being watched. While doing laundry in the patio, I caught a glimpse of a tall, shadowy figure that vanished as soon as I looked directly at it. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, a trick of light and shadow, but the shadows grew bolder, more frequent. I'd see fleeting movements out of the corner of my eye, hear inexplicable sounds, feel an oppressive presence that seemed to envelop the house. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was profoundly wrong. Reluctantly, I began to link these occurrences to the figurine. In a desperate attempt to rid myself of this unseen terror, I returned the statue to the abandoned house, leaving it at the entrance of the basement. I hoped that by returning it I could somehow reset whatever balance had been disturbed. For a brief moment it seemed to work. My next visit to the hospital brought good news. My grandmother's condition had improved. Relieved, I returned home, hopeful that the nightmare was over. That night everything escalated. I awoke suddenly, trapped in the terrifying grip of sleep paralysis. My room was bathed in moonlight, casting eerie shadows across the walls. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, my body a prisoner in my own bed. Then I felt it. A presence, heavy and menacing, moving over me. It felt like a large animal, walking on 4 legs, its breath hot and ragged against my skin. The terror was suffocating, time stretching into what felt like an eternity. When I finally managed to break free, screaming, the room was empty. No sign of any creature, just the lingering sense of dread. Shaken to my core, I fled the house, driving to a friend's place and spent the rest of the night in my car. I didn't dare go back inside. The next morning I received the devastating call. My grandmother had passed away from a massive heart attack. The news shattered me. She had been my rock, my provider, and my guide. The thought that she might have sensed the evil presence, that her warnings were not just the ramblings of sickness, weighed heavily on me. In the days that followed, I was consumed by guilt and grief. The memories of the abandoned house, the figurine, and the unexplainable occurrences haunted me. I couldn't help but wonder if I had unleashed something sinister, something that had contributed to my grandmother's demise. Eventually, I moved away, leaving Monterey to live with my parents in a different city. The weight of what happened lingered with me. Every shadow, every unexplained sound brought back the fear, the guilt. I couldn't return to my grandmother's house. The pain and the memories were too much to bear. Even now, years later, I still question what really happened. Was it all a series of chilling coincidences, or did my actions that day in the abandoned house set in motion a chain of events that I couldn't control? The guilt remains, a constant companion in my life. I hope one day to find forgiveness, to come to terms with the past. But for now, the shadows of that day linger, a haunting reminder of a curiosity that went too far. It's strange how life can take a turn into the inexplicable. I'm Christoph, and I'd never have imagined sharing this story, but here I am. My ex-wife, Sarah, and I were high school sweethearts. She was beautiful, the kind of beauty that made you believe in fate. We got married young and had a baby girl. She loved being a mom, her face always lit up around our daughter. Life was good, simple, and happy. Then 3 years into our marriage, Sarah reconnected with an old high school friend, Rachel. Rachel had always been a bit of an outcast, and rumors swirled about her involvement in witchcraft or something darker. We never took those rumors seriously, just high school gossip, we thought. But after Sarah started hanging out with Rachel again, things began to change. They launched a digital marketing business together. Rachel, to my surprise, seemed normal, having shed her high school persona. The business did okay, not great, but it paid the bills. However, I started noticing changes at home. Sarah was still loving, but she began to neglect us a bit. She'd be lost in her thoughts, her once bright eyes now often distant. I chalked it up to the stress of the new business. One day, Sarah mentioned a ceremony Rachel wanted to perform at their office. Something about financial success, white magic, and new age stuff. She assured me it was safe. I wasn't comfortable with it, but didn't want to come across as controlling, so I reluctantly agreed. When Sarah came back from that ceremony, she seemed off. I thought it was exhaustion, so I didn't press her about it. The following weeks were uneventful but strange. Sarah was increasingly distant, and her business started to flourish unexpectedly. Then, one night, everything took a darker turn. I woke up from a nightmare and, without turning on the lights, went to the bathroom. On my way back, I saw a silhouette sitting in the chair next to Sarah's side of the bed, just staring at her. My heart raced. I turned on the bathroom light, and the silhouette vanished. Sarah stirred, asking if everything was okay. I brushed it off as a trick of my sleepy eyes. But it wasn't a one-time occurrence. I began to see things. A tall, imposing male figure always in the corner of my eye, following Sarah, but disappearing when I tried to look directly. It was unsettling, to say the least. Sarah's success grew, but so did her detachment from us. She was physically there, but mentally absent. When I talked to her about being more present, it led to fights. She was consumed by her work, and frequently went out with Rachel after hours. Things escalated one night when I was alone at home. Sarah was out, presumably with Rachel. Exhausted, I went to bed early, only to be trapped in the most unsettling dream. In it, a tall, dark figure of a man approached me. He wasn't inherently scary, but his presence filled me with an indescribable dread. In a deep, resonant voice, he said, "I will protect Sarah now, stay away." I woke up trembling, my heart pounding against my chest. I waited for Sarah, turning on every light in the house. When she returned, I confronted her about the ceremonies with Rachel. After much insistence, she admitted they were practicing Santeria. My mind raced back to the figure I kept seeing in the nightmares. I told her everything, but she brushed it off, saying it was her spirit guide and there was nothing to fear. I couldn't accept that. In desperation, I gave her an ultimatum. Stop these sessions or risk our family. Reluctantly, she agreed. For a few weeks, life seemed to return to normal. Sarah stopped her late-night outings, and the house felt peaceful again. But just as I began to breathe easier, another nightmare shattered my calm. This time, the man in my dream transformed into a dog-like creature with red, glowing eyes and a demonic expression. I woke up instantly, only to see that same figure standing next to our bed. I flicked on the lights, and he vanished. Unknown to me, Sarah had resumed her sessions with Rachel. She drifted further away from me and our daughter, consumed by her business and these mysterious ceremonies. The nightmares returned, more vivid and terrifying than before. An oppressive, unsettling atmosphere enveloped our home. I tried talking to Sarah again, but it was like speaking to a stranger. She credited her success to this so-called spiritual guide and refused to listen to reason. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. The situation at home became intolerable. Nightmares plagued me, each more terrifying than the last. Sarah, meanwhile, was lost in a world I couldn't understand. Her obsession with her business and her alliance with Rachel had changed her completely. She was no longer the woman I married. She was distant, cold, almost unrecognizable. Our home, once a place of love and warmth, now felt cold and haunted. I would catch glimpses of that sinister figure lurking in the shadows, always watching, always waiting. I knew deep down that Sarah had made some pact, something beyond my understanding, something dark. Months passed and our relationship deteriorated further. Arguments became frequent, and it was clear that Sarah was more committed to her new path than to our family. Then came the day I never thought would arrive. Sarah asked for a separation. She said her business, her new life with Rachel and her practices, needed her full attention. She even suggested I keep our daughter, as she couldn't provide the care and attention she deserved. The divorce was a blur. I moved out with our daughter, leaving Sarah to her chosen life. It was heart-wrenching, but I knew it was the best decision for our child's safety and well-being. Life without Sarah was challenging, but with time, my daughter and I found our peace. The nightmares stopped, and the sinister presence that once haunted our home disappeared. We rebuilt our lives, focusing on each other and moving forward from the dark chapter that had consumed us. Looking back, I still struggled to make sense of it all. The love of my life, drawn into something inexplicable and dark, leaving her family behind. I've come to accept that some things are beyond understanding, and sometimes letting go is the only way to save oneself. I'm sure of one thing. Whatever Sarah got involved in, it was far from benign. The glimpses of that shadowy figure, the nightmares, and her drastic change in behavior all point to a pact with something demonic. But now that chapter is closed and my daughter and I are safe, moving forward in a life free from the shadows that once loomed over us.